The Lawrenceville Valedictorian is chosen from among the highest standing members in the class by the fifth form housemasters and advisors. A number of students were considered for this distinction based on their overall academic records at Lawrenceville. It is now my pleasure to introduce this year's valedictorian, Ashley Duraiswamy from Princeton, New Jersey. If you had to describe Ashley in 3 words, they would be scholar, writer, and classicist. As a scholar, she's been complimented on her love of learning, keen intellect, and the exemplary work that she does daily in all of her classes. She's also recognized for her thoughtful engagement with her fellow students as she relentlessly and joyfully pursues excellence and ever deeper understanding in all that she explores. A recipient of the 2017 Lower School English Prize, honored last year with the Yale Club Book Award, she excelled in the New Jersey Scholars Program and is currently being recognized as a National Merit semifinalist. A passionate and talented writer, she has been a finalist in both Poetry Out Loud and the Woodrow Wilson public speaking competitions, and she was selected as an editor of the Lawrenceville History Review. The Lit and Working Title have published her creative writing, and as president of our Creative Writing Club, she has worked with the Community Service Office to help offer creative writing workshops for middle school students. As a classicist, her final Latin class was completed this past fall at Princeton University, and on the side, she's been teaching herself ancient Greek. Her college counselor writes, "Unfettered by convention, not by expectation, she'll follow her heart and build the intellectual community that is and should be at the heart of any undergraduate community. She's a generous, humble, and dynamic scholar whose academic journey will be long and luminous. It is no surprise to us that she has been selected as valedictorian of the class of 2020.
Thank you, Headmaster Murray. I'd like to begin this speech by saying, hi, everyone. Now, if this were a 2-word speech, I'd almost be content to stop there. I never realized how much I'd miss saying hi to you all until I sat down, started writing the speech, and realized I had to say goodbye instead. Under ordinary circumstances, this is the moment when I would gaze out at all your faces and wonder how many of you would be asleep by the time I finished this speech. Luckily, I don't have to worry about that. You're all free to turn the next 7 to 8 minutes into a well-earned nap, and I'll be none the wiser. To those of you who choose to stick with me, though, let me take you back to March 13th, the last day to travel to the US from mainland Europe. I was traveling. Let's ignore my lack of foresight for now. We were taxiing to the terminal, wedged between passengers who kept dousing their tray tables with hand sanitizer and glancing around furtively every time somebody sneezed. That was when my dad read Headmaster Murray's email and told me we would not be coming back to Lawrenceville in the spring. I don't know where you were when you heard that or how you felt. I hardly knew how I felt. I just remember thinking, this couldn't happen. We often talk about Lawrenceville as a bubble, but I realized I'd always thought of Lawrenceville as a fortress. The world could bang on our ironclad front doors, and we could choose what we wanted to let in. We'd let in what we could deal with and keep out what we couldn't. Despite everything I knew about what was going on, I still thought our campus would be there, waiting for us, when we came back in the spring. As you know, things didn't quite work out that way. Spring term came and found me sitting in this room, staring at the Zoom link for my first virtual class. I had no idea what to expect. Considering the number of times I managed to accidentally mute myself over the next 3 hours, my fears were somewhat justified. In all seriousness, though, I couldn't help wondering, is this really Lawrenceville? To me, Lawrenceville was the circle, the crescent, the classrooms, the walkways, the greens of the grass and the reds of the buildings, the lampposts that glowed in the dark and lit your way back to the house. If there's one thing harder than saying goodbye, it's not getting the chance to say goodbye. If I had to guess, I'd say you probably miss our campus every bit as much as I do. I wish I could point to a moment in the next 3 weeks and say, and that's when I had an epiphany, but that's not how it worked. It was just morning after morning of watching many of your faces pop up on my screen. Morning after morning of thinking this wouldn't work, but watching you make it work anyways. You showed me that every organization, every company, every government, and every school is just people A group of people and everything they're brilliant and daring enough to create. This seems obvious, but I wouldn't be the first time I'd forgotten that. I wonder how many of you recall the blizzard that paid us a visit in the fall of 2018. Given that it made me 20 minutes late to my chemistry final, I'm unlikely to forget in a hurry. When I dashed out of my car, my mom told me to breathe. I thought this was unnecessary advice until I skidded to a halt in front of the exam room, which had been about as ridiculously difficult to find as only rooms in the math and science building can be, and started to hyperventilate. I could see Mrs. Calvert staring at me from inside the exam room. I hyperventilated some more, and then she came out to me. I explained what had happened, and with one of the gentlest expressions I've ever seen, she told me to calm down. It was all right, she said. She would give me time to catch my breath. She would give me the full 2 hours to take the exam. Since then, no final has managed to scare me quite as much because I know there's a person on the other side of that test. A person who has taught me, a person who knows me, a person who would rather see me succeed than fail. Lawrenceville works not just because it's a group of people who share a purpose, but because it's a group of people who want to see each other succeed. I've known people who cheer so loudly at games that they routinely lose their voices. People who whisper, "break a leg," as they slip past each other backstage. I've seen an entire Ives class converge around Jeffrey Tao's desk when he agreed to show us his sketchbook. I've watched Reed Mario hold doors open for hordes of hungry students making a beeline for Irwin. At risk of embarrassing more people, I'd better stop there. Still, I will say this to my wonderful class of 2020. Each and every one of you has my heartfelt admiration and congratulations, not just because you've made it to this point, but because you've brought the rest of us along with you. I'm willing to bet that there's at least one other person graduating today whose time at Lawrenceville would have felt empty without you in it. Now, you may be thinking, where is that list of thank yous that invariably accompanies these speeches? Don't worry, what I'm saying doesn't just apply to the class of 2020. If you're watching this, you have all the thanks I can send you through a pre-recorded video. Thank you, faculty, staff, housemasters, duty masters, advisors, coaches, directors, counselors, mentors, shoulders to cry on. If you're thinking this sounds redundant, it's only because you've played so many roles in our lives, more than I could list here. Thank you, freshmen. Thank you, sophomores. Thank you, juniors. And of course, thank you, parents and family. In a way, you're every bit the Laurentians we are. Because Lawrenceville isn't a fortress or even just a campus. It's a group of people who believe in each other and in the school more than we believe in ourselves. Now, I labor under no delusions that you will remember this speech 4 years down the road. I doubt I will remember how to recite this speech 4 years down the road. No, this speech is for right now. It's for a moment when you might be feeling like you're just one person sitting in a house staring at a screen. So if you're feeling cut off right now, just remember what Mr. Brownlow once said to Oliver Twist. You will not be friendless while I live. Members of the class of 2020, we will never, even in our most melodramatic moments, be able to honestly call ourselves friendless. Because somewhere there will be a teacher, a coach, a friend, someone you kept in touch with, someone you didn't, who, if they knew what you were going through, would want you to succeed, would tell you that you can succeed, and would know that, invariably, you will. And now a few words from Headmaster Murray.
Thank you, Ashley, for those inspiring words.